It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So, if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Dr. Matthew McGann, who's the Vice President and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Amherst College. Now, Dr. McGann was here on episode 260, which was released back in October of 2024. Dr. McGann, such an honor to have you back. How are you doing today?
Oh, it's great to be with you. Always good to get to talk to you and to talk with your audience about college opportunities. Super fun.
Absolutely. Tons of fun. And it's great to be with you as well, Dr. McGann. So since our last episode, again, back in October of 2024, what's new or evolving at Amherst College that you're most excited about? And for listeners who may be new to Amherst, what continues to make the experience there so distinctive, both academically and within its close-knit community?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Good one to start with. And I'll start with what's the same. What continues to define Amherst is the combination of intellectual freedom, academic rigor, and an educational community on a human scale. We're a small residential undergraduate only liberal arts college in a college town in Western Massachusetts. We are famous for, among other things, for our open curriculum, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more later, but that remains one of our most distinctive features. Students are trusted to shape their own education. They have the freedom, but also the responsibility to create their own liberal arts education. Our students also, they love what can happen in a classroom environment when they can participate in small classes with faculty mentors who know them, who challenge them. Amherst isn't a place that has giant lecture hall kinds of classes. That's not who we are. That's not how we do our education. All of our classes are taught by faculty. There aren't any graduate students to be teaching assistants, even if we wanted to. Undergraduates are the only game in town. That's all that we do. And our close-knit community makes this education on a human scale. We're fewer than 2,000 students in total. Again, all undergraduates. We are intentionally small. At Amherst, students are not just a number, not just a face in the crowd. You really matter as an individual. You get not just small class size, but also lots of opportunities for leadership, for connection, for opportunities. So that remains the same. That has not changed. But there are things that have changed. So among the things that are new or newish, one would be that we're building out our campus for the third century of Amherst College. Following our bicentennial a few years back, we've opened up a new building for the humanities. We're about to open, or maybe have opened by the time we release the episode, a new student center and dining commons. And we're in the process of transitioning to a geothermal system. We're trying to become carbon neutral on campus by the year 2030. So if you come onto campus, you'll see, yes, this beautiful new humanities building, a renovated historic building with a modern addition. It houses our history department as well as our Center for Humanistic Inquiry. And it's showcasing our continued commitment to the humanities. So today at Amherst, math and science are our largest majors. And that's true at a lot of places. But this is a time where a lot of colleges are taking this as an opportunity to cut the humanities, to eliminate humanities majors, to downsize humanities faculty. But this building, I think, is a physical representation of our commitment to the humanities within our liberal arts education. I think this building shows that there's never been a better time to study the humanities at Amherst College or anywhere. And maybe just because I know that this is some of the ways that people will think about the humanities, there's now increasing amounts of publicly available statistics about outcomes. And federal statistics show that, in this building, it's a history majors home. Our history majors have some of the strongest outcomes, not just of any history majors, but of any college graduates in the country. So we're really proud of the kind of education in the humanities that we can offer and what our students do with that. So that's one building. And then across the street and over the hill, we got this beautiful new student center and dining commons. At Amherst, we all eat together, the faculty, staff, students, and to be able to all come together as a family, as a community, to break bread together has always been a special part of Amherst. And we're about to say goodbye to our old dining hall and say hello to our new dining hall, which is going to be a 21st century best-in-class dining center that is going to continue to have everything that we've loved about dining at Amherst, which is us being together and food really being a central part of things and really being integrated into the broader experience with having a really modernized kitchen and even higher quality food. With a lot of that food actually coming from nearby local farms and dairies and other places, and even our own campus farm, making for one of the freshest salad bars that you can find out there. The Student Center also has new facilities for all of our student activity groups, new facilities for wellness, new facilities for the arts. This is a really fantastic building to come check out. And then to go carbon neutral, we think as a place that has a long history, and we anticipate at least as long of a future, that we want that future to be around. We want to be good stewards of the environment, and we have made the commitment to move to being carbon neutral within the next few years. And this geothermal project is a big part of it. So if you come on campus again, you might see some digging and some pipes and things happening. And that's all thinking of how not just the first 200 years, but the next 200 years and beyond at Amherst. So that's pretty exciting. And otherwise, we believe in what we do, and we continue to try to find ways to do it the best we can. So that's a little bit about Amherst today.
Well, that's a great overview. And I want to repeat what you said. You emphasize your commitment to the humanities, but that math and science are your largest majors. And you also talked about how Amherst is well known for its open curriculum, which gives students a great deal of ownership over their academic pathway, if you will. So How does that freedom actually play out in the classroom? And when you're evaluating applicants, how do you determine whether a student is really prepared to thrive in that level of independence?
Yeah, that's a great question. People are very intrigued by the open curriculum, but are trying to figure out what does this mean for me as a student? And how does it relate to the Amherst values? And how should I think about it in the application? So I would say that this Amherst core value of curiosity, the open curriculum is one of the ways that you see that most strongly play out in the Amherst education. Our students, when they sign up for a course, they're taking that course because they're genuinely curious about the material, about the subject matter. It's not because they have to check some boxes. It's not because it's a requirement. And so that means that the classroom environment is really going to be electric, that students are going to be eager to participate. They've done all the required reading and more. They cherish the opportunity to be with peers and with a faculty member who love the material as much as they do and are curious about the material as much as they are. So if you think about what it's like to be in a classroom where everyone has chosen to be there, they all want to be there. They've turned away, they've said no to more than 800 other courses for the opportunity for that to be one of their probably 4 courses that semester. And they're so excited to be with other students who are as excited. I think it brings down the level of excitement in the room when some people are there and they don't want to be. And so this is an opposite kind of situation where people really want to be there, and it makes it a more fun, more engaging kind of learning environment. I think also the open curriculum does encourage students to explore across the disciplines. There are dozens of different majors and departments at Amherst. And I see in the open curriculum, students really relishing that freedom and taking advantage of it to find out about things that maybe are not in their comfort zone, maybe are not the things that are most related to their major or their career prospects, but just the things that they're curious about, things that they'd like to know more about. So they use this open curriculum to make those connections across disciplines. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So, how do we think about it on the admission side? Well, we think about how this plays out on campus and try to find those students who we think will most benefit from this kind of approach and who seem to have the qualities that would allow them to really thrive in this. So we are looking across the application, the student parts, the transcript parts, the letters of recommendation parts, to see if we can find evidence of curiosity, of engagement. When students have flexibility offered to them, what do they do with that flexibility? Sometimes you can see that in academic electives. If there's a part of their schedule, maybe by the junior or senior year, where they don't have to just take required things and they can take what they want, what do they choose to do with that freedom? That's something that we talk about is, how are students in the limited ways that they may have choices, and we recognize that not all students in their high school context are able to have choices. How do they exercise that choice? That tells us a lot. Also, beyond the classroom, your unstructured time after school and weekends and breaks, how do you use that time? That's an open curriculum of a sort that you can, in many ways, do what you like with that time. And as you use that most precious resource of time, the ways that you do that's interesting to us, and it helps us to think about alignment with the open curriculum. Also, when we hear from teachers that have taught the student in an academic core subject in high school, What what do the teachers say about their engagement? So it's not just a letter of recommendation for us to know that you got an A in the class or a 93 or whatever it was. We can see that on the transcript. The letters are a time where we can hear a little bit more about what are those moments where you sit forward, where your hand must be thrown in the air because you want to contribute to the conversation, where things that you've said or contributed make for a richer educational environment in the classroom. That can really help us out as well. So there's not one particular question or part of the application that helps us the most, but we'll look across the application to try to find these qualities.
Well, I really appreciate that overview. And you emphasize that one of your core values is the curiosity, engagement. And I love that the classrooms basically you have students that all want to be there because they have hundreds of choices in your open curriculum. And again, they want to be in the classes that they choose. Now, you talked about the letter of recommendation in terms of trying to find evidence of that curiosity. But I have my own curiosity in terms of supplemental questions, and I know that Amherst does have supplementals. What are you looking for in the supplemental? In other words, if a student is truly able to demonstrate their understanding of your open curriculum, of your core values, if they're able to do that, in terms of that portion of the overall application, what does that do for a student in terms of, I guess, their chances of standing out from multiple applicants who are probably very strong academically if they're applying to Amherst, but if they're able to do that in their supplemental, how does that help their overall application?
Yeah, so we use the common application as well as the coalition application, and for some students also the QuestBridge application. And within all three, and maybe I'll focus on the common app, which is the most common vehicle through which students apply. The Common App does have its own essay, but beyond that, we do provide students with the opportunity to give us a little bit more insight into who they are and how they think about things. We provide two different ways through the supplements that students can showcase their fit and their match with Amherst's mission and culture. So, one approach that we take is we give students the option to respond to a quotation from Amherst's historical and current documents. And each of these quotations, and students have three from which to choose, they can choose one that resonates with them and where they feel like they have a story to tell about how their life, their experiences, their outlook aligns with some of the ways that Amherst thinks about itself and the opportunities it can provide to students. So that's an opportunity to write something new in response to something about the college. But we give a second option, which is instead of that, students can provide a paper that they have written for a class recently in high school. Frequently, that might come from an English class or a history class or another social science class. And those essays that they've written for school also can give us a lot of insight into how a student thinks about approaching an interesting academic question, the ways that they marshal evidence and build an argument. Now, these are two different kinds of things. Writing a new essay based on an Amherst quotation or responding to something given to them from one of their excellent teachers in high school. I can assure the listeners that actually it's about 50-50. The number of students that choose each option in the application process, and the admission rates are about the same. This is a long-standing thing at Amherst. Before I arrived as dean 8 years ago, and before I arrived, I worried like, oh, is this one of these parts of the college application process where there's options, but actually there secretly is a correct one? And I needn't have worried because as I looked at the data and as now I've been a part of this process for nearly a decade, I see that the staff at Amherst College is well trained to find evidence to support student admission, regardless of which path they take here, that each can provide really helpful and interesting information. And it's really going to be up to the student which feels like a better way to showcase their fit with Amherst's curiosity-based liberal arts curriculum. So these can all be quite helpful, and I promise that the effort that the students put into either approach is going to be really valuable to us as we go through our admission process.
Well, we appreciate you explaining the two options. And it reminds me of the personal statement where students, it's not so much about the topic that you choose, but it's how you choose the topic to really give insights into who you are as a person, the way you think, what drives you, as opposed to just repeating what's already on the transcript or the activity sheet. And so you have these two prompts. And to your point, it doesn't matter which prompt you use, but I think hearing you talk about it, it's really about you demonstrating students your alignment with Amherst College. I think that that's got to be the goal, right? You can't just answer a prompt and some other college has a similar one and you're going to just use the same thing for multiple colleges. You really want to speak specific to Amherst and again, show how you align with their core values. Now, building on that, when you're reviewing a transcript, what specific signals or patterns tell you a student has challenged themselves appropriately and is a strong academic fit for Amherst?
Yeah, this is something where it has to start with the context of the school's opportunities. That two schools, even if they're in the same district, can have very different offerings and opportunities. May have, and certainly across district and state and national lines, there'll be different things that are required. So for us as admission officers, it begins with understanding that context. What are the things the student has to do? What are the options that the student has before them? What are the opportunities the student has to choose a more rigorous path? What are the opportunities that a student might have to find ways to pursue the things that they're most excited about? So you can't begin a student transcript review without first understanding the broader context of what those opportunities are. I know that you have listeners around the world, and there are many countries and national systems where the curriculum is prescribed. And that is not going to be a detriment to the student. It's something that the admission office needs to understand to make sure that we can fairly evaluate you as a person. The grade point average is a summary statistic of limited value. That is not going to be the starting point or a major consideration in the way that we evaluate a transcript. Lots of different schools and school districts have lots of different ways of calculating a grade point average. So we're going to leave that aside and do our own holistic assessment of a transcript. And before we even think about grades, we're going to think about course selection. So when a student had the opportunity between a regular and an honors and an AP or an IB or a dual enrollment course, what did they choose? And how did that change their trajectory through the curriculum? Did the student continue with 3, 4, or more years, especially in those core subject areas? English, math, history and social science, science, language other than English. Also, we are interested in the arts as a place with vibrant arts communities and also arts majors. So we'll be interested to see how a student has uh, made the choices on a course by course basis, and then across all 4 years and beyond of within different course areas and kinds of choices that they can make. And then, yes, the grades continue to be important. And we do hope at Amherst, at a place where we have lots of applications from students who are really excited about a place with academic rigor and curiosity as cornerstones of our education. Most of our students will have mostly A's across their high school transcript. Doesn't mean you have to have a perfect transcript, but our students mostly have A's in a set of courses that are among the most rigorous available to them.
Well, we really appreciate that. I loved how you talked about the fact that the GPA in and of itself is really limited in terms of the value. And of course, that's because there are thousands of high schools across the country and beyond. And there's probably no two schools that have the exact same course offerings, the exact same grading system in terms of what they weight or don't weight. And you also said before grades, it's all about course selection based on the context of your high school. So, students, based on what you have in front of you, what your high school offers, what did you choose to take over 4 years? And of course, how did you perform? And so, Dr. McGann, a typical question that families ask me all the time is, well, our high school has only 5 advanced placement offerings, but the town next to us has a high school where there's 25 AP offerings and a ton of dual enrollment options. So, is a student at a school that has far less offerings at any disadvantage?
Yeah, this is something that's personal for me. The high school that I attended, not terribly far from where you are today, when I graduated, had 3 AP offerings. And I knew, being on Long Island as I was and you are, this is an area where there are quite a few high schools that have a lot of offerings of AP and other kinds of rigorous curricula. I felt very fortunate that what I saw in my admission process and the admission process of lots of students in similar situations is that admission officers are really doing just what we talked about, which is setting things in context, understanding that different schools have different opportunities. And we hope that students will make the most of the opportunities that are available to them. And I think that makes for a more vibrant campus when you can bring together students not just who have already achieved so much by having 20 AP fives or whatever, but those who have a lot of potential and have made the most and are just waiting for a place with a lot of opportunities. And Amherst can be that place that can provide them with opportunities if they've shown the potential, even if they haven't been able to realize it fully yet.
Well, we appreciate that. And going back to the high school that has many AP offerings, but they also have their fair share of dual enrollment, is there a formula? What does Amherst want to see from a student that comes from that type of a high school, again, that has multiple AP offerings, but also dual enrollment?
Yeah, so I'll start with the easy answer, which is that there is no formula, that we're not taking any kind of algorithmic approach to this. Um, I will say that we do hope that students will uh, take advantage of this opportunity to have challenging coursework. I think it's wonderful when a student has that opportunity when they're in a school that can provide them with challenge and help them to grow. That's wonderful. I do worry a little bit about the flip side. I know that many schools that offer a lot of opportunity, that students feel a lot of stress, competition, pressure, anxiety, and some of that is around academics. Some of that is related to what they think that college admission officers like myself expect. What I hope is that students will take on a reasonable amount of challenge for themselves. That doesn't mean you have to take every AP course. I also see a lot of students in some areas where they're taking APs of classes that they're not even registered for. Again, sometimes it might be because of curiosity, but I fear that a lot of the time it's about the competition and about the pressure. And I hope that through these remarks and through lots of other things that your listeners can hear from other admission officers that have been guests, and through things that are written and the evidence itself, the proof through who is admitted, that you don't need to do everything. You don't need to over pressure yourself. Take on reasonable challenge, not overwhelming challenge. Do well, have good balance in your life. Um, and yeah, if you want to go to a place that's academic, find a way to showcase your curiosity. But volume and curiosity are not really the same thing. So take the opportunities, but have balance.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process. I love what you said. Volume and curiosity are not the same thing. That was awesome. And Dr. McGann, families often hear this phrase called institutional priorities, but it can feel a bit abstract to a lot of people that are not really working in college admissions. When Amherst is shaping a class, what priorities matter most? And are there factors families might not fully appreciate that still play an important role?
Yeah, and I think part of the confusion is that institutional priorities can mean different things at different places. But it's really about building a community, trying to think ahead about the entirety of a group of students that are on campus, and how you match a student body with the kinds of opportunities that are there. I love to go to jazz concerts at at our jazz center on campus. And we've struggled in recent years to find people, among other instruments, to play the trombone. And our jazz faculty and students say, "Hey, can you help us find a trombone?" For some reason, people always talk about the oboe when they answer this question. I don't go to as many as of the classical concerts, so within the jazz area, the trombone, at least for us right now. So, yeah, we might try a little extra hard to identify some talented students that also might be interested in performing jazz trombone on campus. That's a few students out of a incoming student class of 480 or so. Overall, what we're trying to do is to bring together a community where students will have different experiences, different backgrounds, and they'll share those opportunities, backgrounds in a way that other students will learn as much from them as they might from the classes and the textbooks. If we can bring together a class of people who have different interests, different stories, different experiences, I think that makes, again, for a more vibrant kind of community. So that's what we're going to try to do. Now, we're fortunate that I know at some places institutional priorities can mean other things, and that some of those pressures that other places have, we don't, fortunately. So we have need blind admission. So we're not asked to go out and find more students from wealthier backgrounds. In fact, one of the things that's a priority for us is to bring greater socioeconomic diversity to our admitted student group. We don't have any kind of automatic bonus points if your parents attended the college. Sometimes this is called a legacy preference. We don't have individual schools or majors to fill. certain kinds of quotas or anything like that. And we don't have to consider demonstrated interest, which is another term like institutional priorities that has a bit of a mystique and a lot of confusion around it. And for this conversation, I can just say that that's not a part of our process. So we're going to try to find students with many backgrounds, many perspectives, many different things that they're curious about, bring them together. And, I would say that it's not just about the numbers and what activity boxes and things that you might check off for us. Really, especially in a small community like ours, where we all eat together, where we're almost fully residential in nature, that character continues to matter. And when we see evidence of students that are kind, that are thoughtful and empathetic, that are good collaborators and community builders, in many ways, that's one of the biggest institutional priorities we have.
Well, thank you so much for that overview. You talked about the fact that you are need blind in terms of your admissions, legacy is not considered, and you do not track demonstrated interest. Now, you also mentioned that the priority in terms of the incoming freshman class, you're looking to admit approximately a freshman class of 480 students. How many applications does Amherst actually receive to ultimately bring in that class of approximately 480?
Yeah, this year for the class of 2030, we had just shy of 18,000 applications, and our admission rate is about 7%.
Understood. So you received approximately 18,000 applications to get that class of 480, and the admissions rate is 7%. Terrific. Thank you so much for the insight. And a lot of people ask the question these days, is there a benefit to applying early decision, right? Which of course is binding. In other words, students, you apply early decision. If you're admitted, you're supposed to attend. So, Dr. McGann, from your perspective, is there a meaningful advantage to applying ED, and how should students and families really think about whether it's the right choice for them?
Yeah, I think that when a student has identified a place as their first choice, and when they've done the net price calculators and have a good sense that this is going to also be a good financial fit for them and their families, and if that school offers early decision, I think that can be a good fit and a good idea for many students. Within early decision, there's a kind of an implicit bargain here that the student and the school each are kind of giving up a little bit of something. So for the student, they're giving up some freedom rather than being able to apply across all the thousands of colleges in the United States and beyond. They're saying that if I'm admitted to your school, I'm committed to attending. So that limitation on choice is something that the student is foregoing. And in return, the college or university is saying, all right, on our end, in exchange for that, we will provide you with additional consideration. And, so in that way, early decision can be a benefit in the admission process for a student. Now, I would say that at Amherst, the advantage to applying early decision is maybe a little bit less than at some places. Certainly, we want less than half of our class to come from a binding early decision process, and for us, we aim at about 40%. And one of the reasons why we do limit it is that we do have some equity concerns. Some of that concern is eased for us because of our need blind admission approach, because we seek to enroll a socioeconomically diverse class. We can meet 100% of a student's demonstrated need because we have now three different versions of ways that families can get an earlier estimate of what their costs might be, a very detailed net price calculator, a a quick cost estimator that can be done in about 3 minutes. And then something we're calling, or that's being called, the instant estimator, where that's 3 seconds worth of work rather than 3 minutes or 30 minutes for the more detailed thing. I think what families find is that generally, that when we say we're going to make Amherst College affordable for you, that we come through with that with very strong commitments to financial aid. So I hope that as families are exploring early decision, that they are also thinking about that right financial fit. And I'm confident that for most families, they will find that Amherst, in addition to all of the wonderful things that we can provide in the classroom and the dorms and the dining hall, that also we can do it at a cost that is in line with what families can afford.
Well, I think it's a great point to definitely encourage students and their families to use the resources that you mentioned in terms of finding that financial fit. And of course, Amherst remains test optional. Now, Dr. McGann, how should students decide whether submitting an SAT or ACT score strengthens their application? And how important is it for them to consider how their score compares to others from their own high school and not just Amherst's published ranges?
Yeah, this is a good question, and one that we hear a lot about. So, as we think about the application process, one of the things that we're trying to understand is a student's readiness for the rigorous curriculum at Amherst College. And there are many ways that we can find that kind of evidence to help us understand how a student might succeed in our classrooms. We've talked about one of them already, which is the transcript, and that there are lots of things that if you take a careful, holistic look at a transcript, you can learn a lot about a student's readiness. So I don't need to rehash that. But we'll also frequently get other kinds of things for students that have done advanced placement coursework. We frequently will see some AP scores, which are also optional. Some students may have IB scores or may send us scores from math exams or things that they've done that are not scored and rated, but are academic or academic related in nature, like debate and mock trial and model UN. We're hearing from teachers through those recommendation letters. So we've got a lot of different kinds of evidence. And we think that whether or not a student submits the SAT, that we're going to have enough evidence for almost every student to be able to determine their readiness and preparation to thrive at Amherst College. So the SAT, we know that many students take it, although not all, and not the ACT as well. We do see across the country many students who have made choices for a variety of reasons to not spend their time and energy in that way, and that's okay. And then your question speaks to students who have taken the SAT and are trying to figure out, is this something that strategically will help me in this process? And this is, I don't think there is one formulaic way of answering this, and this has been a theme here that, there's not a formula to this, at least at Amherst and places that do evaluation like we do. I see students where they may have scores that are not at the top of their school or not at the tippy top of the Amherst College range, but where it may be something that gives additional help to the admission committee because maybe they've had some up and down grades along the way. And, up and down grades certainly can lead to questions. But when there's other kinds of evidence, and the SAT can be one such kind of evidence, that can be a good reason to provide a score. Or yeah, if your score maybe again isn't high by Amherst College standards, but is high by your high school standards, again, that shows us another thing about how you're performing in a particular context. So that can be very helpful. I think probably there are more students that don't provide an SAT score that they could and not have any negative impact on their application and maybe might have a positive impact on their application. I don't see any evidence that that is related to a student's class or opportunities. I think that, you know, students sometimes are a little bit nervous about their scores, but I think mostly if you have it, if you spent the time in it and you're mostly proud of it, I think providing it can be great. But for the most part, it's going to be something that will be looked at in the context of all of the evidence. I know it can be frustrating to hear this admission dean be asked a pretty simple question like, when should I submit the scores and when should I not? And for me not to be able to give you a really concrete answer to that. But like so many things in a holistic admission process, the answer comes down to, it can really vary person to person, circumstance to circumstance. If you're on the fence, I would say go ahead and submit. But if it's going to be something that submitting causes you anxiety, I don't want to make you any more anxious than a process that's already so filled with anxiety can be. So I'm sorry that I can't give you a more concrete answer, but I hope that all of this context that I'm providing is helpful for the listeners.
It's definitely helpful and we appreciate it. And it's complicated because it's not a one size fits all. It's different between student to student, again, based on the context of their high school, based on your numbers, and of course, how they actually scored. Now, Dr. McGann, students have very limited space to describe their activities on the Common Application. In that format, what tends to really stand out most to Amherst?
Yeah. So I'm really interested in how students choose to spend their time. Time is a very precious resource, and how you choose to use that precious resource can really tell us a lot about your interests, your values. So, maybe my first piece of advice is don't start this by approaching it with what are the clubs I do at school? Which is going to be a part of this for sure. But I think I would come at this first with a question of how do I spend my time? Maybe you even do some charting of it, of what does my week look like, or what does my time in January look like during April break? What does a weekend look like? What does the summer look like? Think about all of those things that you do. And not everything that you do is going to be something that lends itself to having like a title, like being the president or the captain. There's no captain of I love to read. There's no president of I help take care of my grandparents after school. But those things I think are really meaningful, and it tells us something about your interests, your values beyond just, I was captain of the soccer team and I was the lead role in the school musical. And those things are also very valuable. So, yeah, start there. And I think you can also feel free to group things together and not have to feel like each thing has to be individual. So you can find your own themes if you're starting to run out of space in that limited area. So you can pull together different kinds of musical things and say, this is my music interest. I'm a part of this chorus. I do this band. I've done this singing competition, and then we can see all together some of the musical things that you do. So don't sell yourself short by saying, "Oh, I ran out of space because I had to list each thing individually." And I would hope that if you step back from it and look at what you've put into this section of the common application, it's like, oh yeah, these are the things that I'm committed to that are meaningful to me. that I spend a lot of time on. And that's certainly the way that we'll think about it is, all right, how does the student spend their time? Now, sometimes I think students sell themselves short. They don't list a lot of things because they might limit themselves just to the school activities. And then we're going to keep going because I know that there's 168 hours in everyone's week. So maybe we're going to pay a little extra attention to the letter from your college counselor, from your teachers, and then they're going to slip in some things like, well, I think it's really impressive that the student always gets their papers in early because I know that they spend most days after school working at the family restaurant. And the student doesn't mention that. So we're going to try hard to understand the ways that you're spending this precious time resource and then translate it into what would it mean as we're building this purposeful residential community. So do your best. And even if you don't fully capture things, we're going to do our best to understand using all the resources we have.
Well, I really appreciate you talking about listing things that you're truly committed to and that are meaningful to you. It doesn't mean that you have to be the president of a club. You could talk about your music interests. You could talk about your job. You could state that, hey, I love to read. I help take care of a grandparent after school. All of those things really give insight in terms of the type of student that you are. And obviously, as you said, Dr. McGann, it will give you, the admissions officer, who really doesn't know the student, but all of these things will give you a better picture in terms of who that person is, who that student is. So when a student is on the borderline between being admitted or denied, what typically, if there is something that's typical, but what typically makes a difference in that final decision?
Yeah, when we're getting to the final decision, maybe the most interesting thing for the listeners is that at that point, it's not about test scores. It's not about APs. It's not about GPA. By that point, we're already pretty confident that all the students we're talking about are well prepared to thrive in the academic environment at Amherst. So it's going to come down at that point to things that are beyond just those numerical kinds of quantitative things. It's going to be about the kind of community member you are. It's going to be about the kind of impact that you've had. It's going to be about the things that get you excited, the way that you've showcased your curiosity, the kindness that you've shown to others. Those are the kinds of things that when we're at the final kinds of decision making, those are the kinds of things that will make the big difference.
Well, we definitely appreciate that insight. And this has been a phenomenal conversation, as I knew it would. Before I get to the last question, let's reflect on all the questions that I asked. Is there something that you wish I had asked that I didn't? Or I know we covered a lot of things, but is there a topic that didn't come up that you'd like to share with us now?
Oh gosh. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, over 200 plus years at Amherst. There's been some pretty cool things that we've gotten to be a part of that are just some neat things about Amherst. So just across the street from our campus is the home of the celebrated American poet Emily Dickinson. The Dickinson family was very involved with the early years of the college. And we run her house as a museum and also as a place for scholarship for our students and faculty. And to be affiliated with that and to have that as a part of our education is great. Also, the largest library of William Shakespeare in the world is not in the United Kingdom, it's in the United States, and it's a part of Amherst College. It's called the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C. It's right next to the Supreme Court building, so if you're down in D.C. in that area, they have fabulous exhibits. You can see the largest collection of Shakespeare's first folios. There were only 200 and some odd copies, folios made, first folios of Shakespeare, and Amherst College, through the Folger Shakespeare Library, has by far the largest collection of them, many of which are on display for the public to see. And we send our students down there as fellows to get to touch the paper of William Shakespeare, to dive into some of the greatest archival material. On campus, we've got showing off decades and decades of fossils that our faculty and students have found on digs across the United States. You may know that Amherst College mascot is the mammoth. And the first thing that happens when you walk into our museum is you see a mammoth set of fossils that faculty and students found on a dig, and that inspired our nickname and mascot. It's a wonderful place. And the mascot is great. You'll see our mammoth around many of our games. And Amherst certainly has a long history of athletics. It was the first athletics department of any college in the country. The very first baseball game between two colleges in the United States was between Amherst and our eternal rival, Williams College. So lots of history that continues to be something that our students can benefit from today. Uh, Getting to be a part of these museums, getting to be a part of a great athletic tradition, getting to be part of a community that isn't just 4 years, but really lasts for a lifetime. Amherst, we really want to build that community to our campus and to our offerings uh, well beyond when a student steps across the stage with their diploma in hand. It's one of the wonderful things about our community.
Well, it's a wonderful community, rich in history and tradition. And one of the things, it may seem simple, but one of the things that keeps resonating with me is all of the things that the students do with the faculty. You eat together, you work together. It really does sound like an amazing community. And this has been a terrific conversation, Dr. McGann. I can't thank you enough. Unfortunately, it does lead us to that last question, which always is, what are your top three pieces of advice for students and their families getting ready for the college admissions process?
Yeah. I have many pieces of advice, and the three that I'll give here, I'm not sure that they're my top three, but they are among my three. So I hope that families and students can approach this process from a place of excitement and opportunity, that this is part of an educational journey um, rather than a game to be stressed out about. So my first tip is about the mindset coming in, is about this educational opportunity. This is a journey. Let's do this together in a way that is exciting rather than filled with anxiety. Also, I hope that students and families will look for the right financial fit in addition to the right academic fit. We talked about this a little bit earlier, that we're trying to find ways to help families understand what the costs might be early on in the process. We've made a lot of policy commitments to having an equitable, financially equitable admission and enrollment process. And we really hope that students, regardless of their financial background, are going to be able to come into this process and get the opportunities that they deserve. So the financial fit and that planning, I think that's a good approach. I really hope that this is a part of a journey for students that they can look back on and be proud of, and really feel like it was, a way of thinking about all that they've accomplished in their years leading up, and not judge themselves by the outcome necessarily. That this is not a referendum on how good a person you have been. That, yeah, there are a lot of things about fit and institutional priorities that we've talked about today, that we don't get to know you fully as a person. We do our best through the application, but it's an imperfect process. But if you can come into this process with integrity and pride and thoughtfulness, I think that on the other side, regardless of the ranking or the brand name of the school that you get into, that you'll be happy with the opportunities that come on the other side. And those opportunities, I hope, will set you up for a lifetime of civic engagement, of a fulfilling career, and engagement in things beyond yourself. So, uh, yeah, I hope this is an exciting process for everyone, and it's a real honor to be on the other side of your application.
Well, yes, we definitely want it to be an exciting process for everyone, a reflective process, and hopefully where families come together and students, you find the right fit and enjoy it for 4 years and, of course, beyond. Dr. McGann, you're awesome. I'm so grateful that you came back. Thank you for your mentorship, your friendship. I truly do appreciate it more than you know. Thank you so much, Doc. You were awesome.
Thank you, and have a great everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care, all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.